There you go. Yeah, so we're officially recording the raw, uncut, unfiltered show, whatever it is.
Love the name.
Yeah, it doesn't have a name. It's someone told me I should call it Tanya's TV, but I thought, really, this is almost literally the opposite of TV.
I thought raw, uncut, unfiltered was good.
Yeah, no, that's raw, uncut, unfiltered is good because TV. Huh. So this is Brielle Cotterman. Am I saying that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is our first conversation face-to-face, although we did have a phone call once.
We did, yeah.
A while ago. And I was drawn to reach out to you because I saw the interview you did with Susie Cater, who I recently photographed.
Yes, Susie's great.
And I loved watching the two of you talk, but I was sitting there in the sidelines going, but photography. But it was such a great conversation about PR and messaging, and because that's her lens.
That's the combo. Yeah. PR on my end and messaging on hers. Yeah,
exactly. And I was like, I feel like it's like a three-way triangle because it is, right? It's, I see this all the time, and my clients end up in the press all the time.
Yes.
Not that I'm actually, how do I say this? I'm not coaching them to do it or do anything for the press, but I know what the press needs. So I'm making sure that when we do a shoot and we're all invested, you want to do extra for the press.
Absolutely.
So that you're ready when it comes, because, and I'm sure you could speak to this more, but the budgets are going like, and
yes.
the idea that some magazine or newspaper is going to send a photographer out to do a story about you, that just doesn't happen anymore.
It's very rare. And I love that you say that too, because, that visual piece is just such a huge part of the preparation. Because I think that's the part that people miss so often. Like, we talk about these dream visions of being on these certain stages or getting featured in these certain places. But I think the conversation that we miss a lot of the time is the actual preparation.
Yes. It's funny because sometimes I tell people that what we're doing is we're sort of creating the vision board.
Yes.
It's instead of going through a magazine and ripping out other people's pictures, we're making your pictures for your magazine piece that you walk into, because that's what you're doing. That's why you're building your business and growing it and trying to get the message out. You might as well just make the picture as if the message is already out.
Yeah, and you do such a beautiful job of that too, Jenny. That's a big thing for me. Like, I love that you capture authentic photos and you capture like a person's spirit, because I feel like so often people get bad advice when it comes to that. They get very staged looking.
Yes. Well, partly I think that comes from the fake it till you make it school.
Sure.
I don't know what I am. I don't know who I am. So I'll fake it till I make it. And then
I will fake being somebody that's not me, because I know that that's something that's successful.
Yes. Which is literally saying it's somebody else's success.
Yes. You're emulating someone else. So that's a big part of the work that I do with it when it comes to persona and image. And I think people have a misunderstanding around persona, because they think a lot of times that means exactly what we just discussed. That means stepping into the image of somebody else or aspiring to be someone else. But when you really put yourself in a place where you are organic and authentic, that persona is drawn from within, and you're showing up as your best version of yourself. And whether that's in an interview that you're giving or an article that you're writing or a beautiful photograph, that to me is the most important part, that preparation is in alignment with who you truly are and what you're truly showing up in service of others.
Do you ever use the example of Sasha Fierce?
Yeah. Yes. So, and there was the book that I think it just came out like last year. What the alter ego. Yeah. And it's the same, same concept of stepping into that. But, for me, I use a lot of acting concepts when I'm talking to my clients, when we are preparing for publicity, because most of my clients, they've got the story, they've got these beautiful messages, and they really truly show up in service more often than not. But the part that they don't understand is how to draw that forward in every single piece, because it's exactly like what you mentioned. It's so easy to get confused and think, well, she's famous, so I need to act like her and I need to look like her. And that is where people lose it. That's where that know, like, and trust, when you're a decision maker for the media, when you're a decision maker as a prospect or as a client, you're going to feel that, you're going to feel that disconnect.
Yeah. It's funny, back in the photography world, I started in fashion photography. So way back when, different famous photographers had their assistants, right? Well, the person that I originally began working with had been Bruce Weber's assistant. And people would literally hire him thinking, oh, I can get the cheaper version, or and it was so annoying for him trying to create his own thing, to be pigeonholed as I'm the little cheaper version of this other person. Like nobody wants to be somebody else's little offspring, right? Like
right, exactly.
Everyone's looking for their own vision and voice and feeling. And that was a thing that really people had to overcome, was not being pegged as, oh, you're just like that. Oh, you're another one of those. How do you get your own brew going and not be the offshoot of some big famous? And I mean, we both come from Marie Forleo, right? Like, or we sort of originally connected through the B School group and things like that. And it's pretty easy to look at people's websites and say, oh, I'll bet they went to B School.
Right.
Right? There's a lot of formula happening. And I feel like the whole world is now moving away from the, like, do not give me another formula. Do not give me another, like, click funnel. Da, da, da.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Give me your real story, and let it come out organically. And it doesn't always have to be, one kind of social media, one kind of press, one kind of anything.
Right. And so I love that you said that it comes back to story, because it's so true. And that's the foundation of all of the work that we do. And I've been doing PR for, I've been in PR for like a decade, but prior to that, sales and marketing and all the different things. And so that's why I do things a little bit differently than most traditional PR firms, because when at the end of the day, when I walked into the PR firm, I'm working with really high level clients. I'm seeing all of these beautiful, incredible, accomplished people come in, and I'm thinking, wow, these people are going to be rock stars, and you'd always see somebody skyrocket, and you'd see somebody else who on paper looked like equally as qualified, kind of like plateau, and they just never made it. And so for my sales and marketing mind, I looked at it as like case studies, and so what is it about this person that is so magnetic that they are skyrocketing, and what is it about this person that they're not? And the truth of the matter is, what it comes back to is story. The person who is vulnerable enough and authentic enough to step forward as their genuine selves and tell and share a bit of their story, they're the ones that people migrate to.
Does it have to be a sad story?
Doesn't have to be a sad story. There's stories of drama and trauma and triumph and overcoming and all of these things. And when you look at the people, like you said, of this shift that's going on in our culture right now, when you look at people who are really knocking it out of the park, when you look at people that are sharing, they are being real. They're not sugarcoating and sharing some version that they've been conditioned to create, that they feel like is some perfect vision that is going to make other people feel comfortable. They're sharing their actual humanness.
Right. I had a couple years ago, I was going to do a book. It was right after the year that I photographed Malala. And I had a really good friend and I were about to do something that was all about making money for people. And it was called portraits and profits, and it was about headshots and makeovers and PR makeovers too.
Yes.
And then one day we were getting lunch and she said, God, it's like too bad we can't work with the other kinds of profits. And both of us just went, oh my God, that's it. So we decided that we would work on this thing called Prophets Among Us. And it was about ordinary people delivering extraordinary messages of hope, love, and peace. And
I love that.
And it's still a good idea, but I abandoned it for different reasons. And what was I'm trying to come up with what was my point. One of the things that came up, was why I was doing this book. And woven into my why of the book was the story of my breakup with my then boyfriend, which was traumatic. It was devastating. He worked with the Malala Fund. He continued to work with her. I could no longer work with them for a lot of different reasons. And I was like, I can't go forward with this project when that's my story, my foundation story. And it was one of the reasons I let it go. I mean, I kept doing the work and I kept looking for profits and looking for guides. And the crazy thing is, I then sat down in sort of my goodbye moment with Malala and her dad, and we're sitting in a hotel room, just the four of us, my ex, Malala's dad, Malala. And I told her about the book, and I had been scared I'd been thinking about the book for 6 months or a year, and I was scared to tell her because of the word prophets in the title, because she's Muslim, and I thought, I don't know how that's gonna go. And she said, no, I love it. Like, that's brilliant. And I think that's such a great title. And we were studying titles in school, and it all was great. And her dad, he was super supportive. And then she said, and I said, yeah, I see you on the first page, because she's the one who helped me understand what I was doing. And she said, know who belongs on the last page? And I'm like, no. She's like, you belong on the last page. That shifted everything for me. All of a sudden I understood what the book was. All of a sudden I understood we are all prophets in different phases of uncovering. And we have this attachment to fame, celebrity, people who are known, people like, and I went to an event where I was looking specifically to meet Anita Moorjani, who's an amazing speaker. She was a close friend of Wayne Dyer. She speaks about her near-death experience and then life after that. And she and I connected, we met. I gave her my Malala card. I ended up photographing her a year later. But as I was going from person to person and doing these photos and realizing, we all have it. And I was at the event, and I met a woman who was a bus driver whose only child had been killed in a car accident by a drunk driver 5 years earlier. Then I met another woman whose only child had recently passed. And I thought every single person here is just as valid, important, useful to the world as every person up on the stage. So I always had a struggle with the people who are on stage and the people who are in the audience, because really everyone it's interchangeable, right? And the people on stage know that. The people in the audience, not so much.
You're exactly right. Yeah, if they're the right people on the stage, they do know that.
Yes, if they're humble, if they know the truth of who they are, then they know. And then the people in the audience. So this is where I struggle with the whole idea of publicity, because we look at celebrity like it's better than or bigger than, and it's not. It's an amplification. If anything, it's a peeling away. And
you're exactly right. It's an amplification. So for me, I always think publicity is the ability to grab attention.
Yes.
And it really is, it's a power. with publicity. So I always tell all of my clients, you know, when you have the opportunity to truly claim your story, all of the stories that you were mentioning, those on the stage, the people in the audience, when you have healed, if it is something traumatic, like what you mentioned, when you have the foresight to really claim that story instead of standing behind it, that's when you truly step into your power. Because along with that story comes the ability to make an impact. It comes the ability to make a difference, to amplify your voice, to change the way people think, to shift perspectives, you know. And so there's all these beautiful benefits, you know, for our businesses, for our cause, all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's truly about the power that comes with claiming your authentic self, your story, who you are, and how you got to be that person.
Because
that's where the
I
real
am not my story.
lies.
Right. So it's when you rise above your story, basically.
Absolutely.
If the story is negative. Yeah. Because I know you have a really powerful story, but you don't talk about it that much. I mean, you sort of throw it out there in 2 sentences, like, you know, I was almost murdered, and you just throw it out like,
right.
but because obviously you don't need to be that. You're not the victim story. You're not any of that.
No, you know, so here's the thing for me. I let that story own me for a really long time.
Oh, good. I want to hear about that.
I did. Well, you know, I was working in PR, and I knew I was playing really small, because that story filled me with shame. You know, it's very typical, the response that is very typical aftermath of domestic violence. So I am a survivor of attempted murder and domestic violence. And, you know, there's a lot of shame that goes along with that. How did I get into this type of situation? How, you know, and questioning, because our society does not do a very good job. Our culture is not very proactive about having active conversations about domestic violence, that domestic violence happens to all people, all ages, races, genders, socioeconomic backgrounds, everything. And so I felt very alone, and I felt very ashamed of what I had been through in my life. And so even though I was still in the PR world, so here I am every day telling my clients, you know, the real way to success is you've got to share your story. We've got to dig deep, you know, let me help you uncover. Let's find the root of why it is you're doing what you're doing, without somebody standing on stage and saying, well, here's my why, you know. And
you hadn't been through it. So it wasn't like the story led you to PR. You were actually in PR, living, not telling your story.
Exactly. So there I am telling my clients every day they've got to step forward and tell their story. And it was like, you know, like this dagger to my heart every single time, because I knew I was playing small, but I was playing small because I knew I couldn't take my own advice yet. So I wasn't strong enough to do it.
Do you feel like the work you were doing was also healing you?
Oh, of course. Yeah. You know, I mean, isn't that what they always say, like those who can't teach or whatever, you know?
Those who can do and those who can't teach.
Yes, exactly. So I was in that place. I was teaching and mentoring my clients and helping them to do the work that I was not capable of doing yet.
Oh, that's interesting. I believe the expression is intended for a different reason. It's actually intended as a put down of teachers. But it's funny because now in the world we're in right now, I feel like teachers are the future rock stars of the world, right? Like, yeah, teachers and healers and guides.
I was going to say, and teachers and nurses and the nurturers, and yeah.
Right. That is absolutely. So we're flipping those scripts. And I think the false, I don't know about you, but when I look at celebrities right now on, you know, their private social media, whatever, some of them are on fire, like Trevor Noah rocking it. I mean, Stephen Colbert is doing a great job. You know, some of them are just like handling they're just going with the flow of, okay, we're all just doing this from home and I'm still me, because they feel like they're still me. And then there are some other people who have just disappeared and you're thinking, well, who are you when you're not working, acting, being famous? And then there's, you know, Lady Gaga put on that incredible concert way back at the beginning of COVID, and everyone coming from home felt so beautiful and so real.
Yeah, she's one of my favorites.
And I just feel like that's what we're in. We're in the rise of the real, the fall of the false.
100%. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I see it more and more and more with my clients that we're pitching where we're getting opportunities. You know, and for me, you know, kind of going back to that piece of my own story, having that near-death experience, all of those sorts of things, it does change everything. It changes your entire perspective. But getting to the place where it was like, I was so uncomfortable not taking ownership of it, not stepping forward as who I truly am. And because that doesn't define who I am, but it definitely shaped the person that I am today. I had a major impact on my life. And it's like, you know what, Tanya, that was in my life for a reason. Yeah. And if I can help, if I can stand up and speak about it, which I do very regularly, in the world of domestic violence prevention, because I am an advocate for a world where domestic violence is not accepted, and where people who are victims and survivors are greeted with empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
So I knew that I had within me this ability to make a difference and to help even just one person from being in that exact same position. And just like you mentioned, all of those quote unquote celebrities who are stepping forward and using their platform in a way that is really positive and providing a message of hope. I just feel really blessed that I have the opportunity to do that, to make an impact in that way, even though it's, you know, clearly not on the same scale as Lady Gaga, but in my own way. When I do write those articles, when I do speak, I get thousands and thousands of emails from men and women who are in those types of situations, who have experienced that in their life, who have never been able to step forward and share, because they're feeling those same things that I was feeling.
Yeah. Well, and it's different things. I mean, I actually feel like healing at an intimate level is more powerful. Like what you do is actually more powerful than what Lady Gaga does. She reaches a lot of people, which is awesome. And she can lift up the energy and the feeling of a lot of people, but they can't write to her and get a letter back. They can't like actually have a conversation with her or like make a real connection. So there's something about, you know, big celebrity. It's just it's a different thing, but it's
totally different.
It's not intimate healing. And it's funny because the near-death experience it took me a while to figure this out. It is sort of the common denominator of every prophet that I was finding or photographing. That every one of them it was either an awakening but more often than not, it was a near-death experience.
I would say that I experienced a significant spiritual awakening following the experience, you know, and not to share too many details, but my late husband held a gun to my head and pulled the trigger, and the gun misfired.
Wow.
So there's absolutely no logical reason for me to be here on this earth.
I got it.
And so every single day that I get the opportunity to step forward and to help people, to help other women, to help entrepreneurs take ownership of who they truly are and make a difference in the world using that as their fuel, that's a day that I'm blessed beyond measure.
Yeah. But it's funny because to me, you had it's really almost two different experiences. There was the experience of that relationship and the violence. Then there's the experience of you not speaking.
Right.
Which was almost like a different kind of healing that you had to do. Because you're telling
Yeah, there was a different type of torment internal, and
like,
I recognized that, and I saw it in so many people.
interesting. So have you ever looked at your clients sort of generally and said, oh, I see why these people came to me? Like, are there
Oh
like
my goodness, yeah.
threads of,
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Everybody has a story. It's just like you said, all the people on the stage, all the people in the crowds, everybody has a story. And when you get to the place where you want to be really real, and like I said, it doesn't even have to be drama or trauma. It can be success and triumph and overcoming. And those are beautiful and powerful stories too. But I always tell my kids, there's two ways to get somebody to do something. You can either manipulate them or you can inspire them.
right?
And so I work with clients that want to shift perspective, change makers, people that want to make an impact. I don't work with clients that want to manipulate people to get them to do something.
Oh my God. You just described the clients I had to get rid of because honestly, they were just manipulating their children into smiling for the photo. And I was like, I can't do that. Versus someone who's like, let's make this fun. Let's play. Yeah. I mean, play makes better pictures.
Absolutely.
And cheese for the camera. I mean, I have this game I play with people where, someone's like, oh, that's such a nice picture of you. And I do this with the picture. I cover the, like, and you can see that the eyes are not smiling. And that to me is everything that's wrong with the wrong kind of media, which is, it's all like smoke and mirrors, make the people smile for the camera, and they're not smiling in their soul. So,
right.
And it's funny because now I know what I'm doing, so I can actually show this to people. I have a woman I was just working with. This was so great. We're taking tons and tons of pictures, and she's like, God, this is exhausting. I'm like, stay with me. And then I showed her the pictures, and I said, can you see where your spirit exits? Like, can you see where you're not here? In this way, like, you're looking at me, the eyes are focused, but you're not here. She's like, oh my God, I see it. I'm like, yeah, that's the difference between your presence being transmitted through the image and my body's here, but my spirit is not. And there's some sort of a block.
Yeah, there's always a block, because you have to be present.
Well, that's what makes, for me, that's the difference between just like a plain old photograph and what I think I do. And it's not like I do it, like I had pictures to show her where I wasn't getting it. That's why I kept shooting, because I knew I wasn't getting it, because I knew she wasn't there, because I knew she was going through the motions, because I knew I was telling her 16 different things, like, okay, step like this, move like this, smile, feel. And then I'm saying all kinds of nonsense while we're shooting, like, we're making up Tinder boyfriends or something, whatever, just to make her laugh, to make her forget all the silly instructions that I just gave her. Because really, I think laughter brings your soul through so many things anyway.
Yeah.
But it's why I don't know. It's the magic for the photos, and
it is, and it's story. I mean, you tell a story, and and your photographs are so beautiful, and that I think is the commonality. When you said like the messaging, the PR, and then the photographs, with it being a triangle, I think that is the commonality when those things are really on point.
Well, I don't know if
that story.
I don't know if you know how I met Susie, but I saw her post something in one of those Facebook groups, and she was talking about her new one-page website, and I was like, whoa, that's so ballsy. I love that.
Yeah.
Like, who could do that? I mean, I fantasize about a one-page website, but as a photographer, and so I looked at it, and she's a copywriter, so the copy's all good, and I'm looking at the pictures going, are you kidding me?
Right.
Like, no. So I reached out to her and said, we need to do an experiment here, because I want to know the difference between this one page website with these pictures and the one page with like what I think you are, based upon what I was reading. And by the way, if the pictures aren't great, I don't think anyone's going to read. Like you get that split second. Well, it's a combination because it's the color of your website or the font or the, like, it could be a lot of things, but the visual information that comes through way before the words.
And you're right. It is a split second, and it has to do with, you know, this is a ton of the work there again that I do, because it has to do with body language. It has to do with the way you show up. Are the words that are written on that page, or the words that are coming out of your mouth, are they in alignment with what someone is seeing visually?
It's my favorite word. I say it all the time because when I'm talking to people about a photo shoot, it's not just about the pictures. It's about your clothing aligning with your personal style, with your energy, with the color of your website, which actually should come out of your personal style, not the other way around. Like, oh, I like pink and I'm going to make my website pink. No.
Right. No, my website, when we did my entire branding board and everything, is all designed around the colors of the interior design of my home.
Which is designed around you.
Yes, designed around my taste and my style and what is authentically me.
Yes. Yes. And so that's for me, that's what I struggle with trying to communicate as a photographer. Like, you know, how do I tell you that it's not about the pictures? I know that what you're getting here is pictures, but you're getting a whole package of alignment so that you can transmit you through this thing we call a picture. And, yeah, it's, well, and it's funny, it's a moving target too, because I also feel that we're switching to video more and more and more. And you kind of need both.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, honestly, if I don't like the picture, I'm not going to click on the video. Yeah, it's tricky. And also, you know what, I've started realizing that I think the picture is like the poem, and the video is the short story, long story, movie, whatever. But a single photo is kind of like poetry. You've got a couple little phrases you can utter, and that's all you got.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell my clients that when we prepare for interview, when you specifically, you know, when you said video, because I've got clients, especially right now, like I've got a client shooting, you know, a television segment tomorrow, because they're shooting still via Zoom with a lot of studios. And it's the same. It's got to be like a dance, you know, you've got to show up in a way that is an extension of who you truly are. And it's got to be in alignment with your brand, with your story, with what it is, your service, you know, all of those pieces. And then it's got to be like a dance, you know, there's got to be give and take, and there's got to be engagement that is real, not the surface stuff.
Right. So why did you pick PR in the first place?
You know, for me, this was my way to amplify my own voice and my own experience.
By like, here, let me amplify your voice, and then by association.
Yeah. Oh, well, see, I am an advocate by nature, like big time. And so I am I am a bleeding heart, and I am an advocate by nature. And so for me, then at an arm's length, I get the opportunity to support and promote so many incredible causes and businesses that really do a lot of good in the world, and people who are truly celebrities, because they are the people who show up in service continuously. And so that for me is very rewarding. And honestly, a few years ago, my son said to me, "Mama, I know that you help people to make their dreams come true, but what are your dreams?" And so I was like, well, shoot, out of the mouths of babes, right? You know, like, so I was always standing behind my clients, which was totally fine with me at the time, because I still was not in a place where I was ready to share my own story. And within, like, I would say about a month, I had a client that I was working with, based in London, and she had written a book, and I was helping her with some promotions and so forth. And so then, you know, my son says that, and then she says, you know, why are you not really sharing what it is that you have lived? Because she knew the story. And so she was like, you know, I knew you were the person because I wanted to tell something that's going to make a difference. I want to tell something that's going to make an impact. And I knew you were the person because you would understand. You know, I'd lived this life-changing story. And I was like, I know that I need to be sharing the story. And so then I went out that evening, Tanya, I pitched 6 different publications. And, you know, sometimes you hear back right away. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes you never hear back at all. Yeah. And within 24 hours, it was like the universe was like,
oh, wow. They all said yes.
I got yeses back on every single pitch.
I love messages like that. You can't miss them.
Right. So, and you know, I don't know, Marianne Williamson in her book, Return to Love, she talks about like little angel hands kind of like pressing on your back, like the universe conspiring to help propel you forward. And that was really, truly my experience, because I can tell you, it was kind of like dragging me along at the beginning, because I was very fearful still. Even though my former husband is no longer living, I was still very scared. And so,
were you scared you would attract that again?
I think it was more of a like a PTSD type of illogical fear, just associated with speaking these words out loud. And giving life to this story that had kind of owned me for so long. Not kind of, it definitely owned me for quite some time. And fear of judgment too. Yeah. You know, here I am, I'm a very well-educated, successful woman, and I'm going to step forward and I'm going to tell you that I have been abused mentally and emotionally and physically and basically every way that you can think of. And I didn't want to be labeled that way.
Yeah. Yeah, naturally I have a lot of that story.
Yeah.
And so, for me, it goes another layer of not wanting to betray family.
And I hear that a lot.
Yeah, like maybe when they're not living, I don't know, but
I hear that a lot.
Because you know you can't take it back, and also the same as I said about I didn't want, you know, Tanya's breakup story to be in any way affiliated with Tanya's breakthrough story.
Exactly. Yeah. So see, that's my thing. We do breakthrough story. So that's where my work is rooted in, you know, that's the signature work that I do is breakthrough stories.
Yeah. But it has to, you know, because I realized it, I wrote a piece that actually it got published in Huffington Post 1 year exactly after the breakup, but I could tell just by what I wrote that I was still in it, man.
Still in it. Mm-hmm.
I was still in it, churning it, like trying to be nice about how I said things. And my sister was like, "Oh, you were way too nice." And I said, "Yeah, no, I wasn't that nice. I really wasn't." Yeah. And, you know, I hadn't really gotten to the place where I believed that it was a blessing, that the betrayal was a blessing.
Sure.
Even though the whole article was titled the silver lining of betrayal. I'm like, I know what it's supposed to be, but I wasn't quite living it yet.
Yeah, and I think in my interview with Susie, that was one of the questions that we got from one of the ladies that was there, you know, how do I share my story if I'm still in it? And so for me, that's always a really interesting question, because there are certain things that we are going to be in that we do want to share. But at the same time, I think sharing a story that you haven't taken the time to properly process and heal from, you're going to miss out on where the true power lies. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little bit like, don't write that email while you're still angry.
Yeah. Just take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath, take a moment. Go to sleep or something.
Yeah. So the progression to publicity, previously I had been a national spokesperson for some charitable organizations, and I had just always been very inclined I competed in Miss America organization. I had always been very inclined to the public speaking piece, and it had always been something that was a passion within me. And so when I stepped out and sent out those pitches and got all the yeses and kind of just like started on that path, what ended up happening, not only did I amplify my cause, but I amplified my career as a result. And it all felt like I had stepped into my soul's work for the first time in my life. Everything felt completely aligned, and it felt like I was finally doing what I was put on this earth to do, even if it took going through some shit to get there.
Right. Interesting. Do you think the press piece is necessary? Like, because there's the whole world of influencers, right? Which I don't think influencers are doing the work that we wish they were doing. And some of them are. So like I can think of a photographer who writes the most beautiful stories to go with his photos. So he's doing the work of an influencer, and it's not all shiny, buy my boots kind of thing.
Right.
And he basically exists without press, more or less. Every once in a while there'll be a little tiny piece. But is that possible, or do we need press? Like, what's the power of the press, or how do you feel the power works?
To me, the power is the reach. It's the impact. It's the ability, like we mentioned before, the manipulation or the inspiration. It's the ability to inspire on a broader scale.
Right.
I don't think that it's necessary. I see people who have these cult-like followings who don't necessarily pursue publicity.
Right.
I don't think that it has to be that way. I see societies and memberships and all of these sorts of things that people promote in a way that is very humble. And I love those programs, and I love those people, and I admire them tremendously. So I don't think that publicity is necessarily a requirement. I think it is a step that is far easier to craft than a culture of a cult-like following.
Right. That, like, your organic reach is only going to go as fast as it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's only going to go so far until you have the opportunity to broaden that.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I learned, because by the way, that ex used to run CNN. So there's a lot, I learned a lot about media gathering, how it works. We talked about Huffington Post being this mechanism. It's sort of like it's a portal or a platform, but it doesn't guarantee anything because it was so easy to get that you could just have your article there. Didn't mean anybody would ever see it.
And that's, so this is where I think it's so interesting. And, you and I have shared about you've been everywhere. Your work has been everywhere. And this is the really interesting thing about media now, publicity. To me, I think, and this is part of the reason why I scrapped the whole idea of a traditional PR firm. Traditional PR, not coupled with strategy, is really kind of dead. It's exactly what you said. That's not where it is anymore.
Like doing a press release, that kind of thing. Right.
And so let's say, for instance, when you look at all of these platforms, because there are so many, it's kind of like if you're looking at a graph, like you're going to see the bigger opportunities over here. You're going to see the bigger publications, like CNN. You're going to see some of the bigger places here. And then you're going to see this, and the tail is getting longer and longer and longer because there's so many niche opportunities that are huge blogs, that are influencers, that are bringing other information in, that are, little boutique type opportunities. And so I think the really interesting part is there are so many platforms where you can simply have an article, and it might not make the impact that you're hoping. And I think that's the main reason why people leave a PR contract disappointed, even though they get the features. because they're not seeing that ROI. They're not seeing that return on investment in time and money. And that's because it's not coupled with a strategy, because a PR opportunity is really a tool at the end of the day.
Right. Interesting. So are you saying that not all PR people have strategies?
I think all PR people have strategies to get people featured. Gotcha. Beyond that, I would say it's very few and far between that someone has the savvy not only to get the publicity opportunity, but to employ a strategy that's going to help you to leverage that opportunity, use it as a tool, grow your audience. I mean, sales funnel is that one of those terms that I don't care for. Yeah. Because I feel like it's so impersonal. But I mean, if you think about it, the way a sales funnel is used to drive people into a nurturing sequence or to draw people closer to you, publicity opportunity is the exact same thing.
Right.
If it's used properly.
Interesting. So I guess I use it completely improperly, which is to say with zero strategy whatsoever. That's my stuff gets featured everywhere. It has had zero impact, zero on my life, career, whatever. No one ever calls and says, oh, I saw you in this. I mean, I also started before we had the internet, but
right.
Like, I mean, I can't believe that I still fight for photo credits on things. And then I laugh because I'm like, well, no one actually reads photo credits. So who cares? My pictures were in Town and Country magazine. Doesn't matter. Like, I mean, maybe later if they see them in my portfolio, they would say, oh, I remember that story. Or something like that.
But it does. Yes. Yeah.
So that's that for me. It's funny when younger photographers ask, like, should I, do it for credit? I'm like, you know what? It depends on how big they're going to publish it, how beautifully they're going to publish it. And if you can put that piece in your portfolio in a way that will be beautiful in the future, then it's worth something to you. And then, yeah, photo credit's fine and you don't have to be paid. Mm-hmm. Because that's what photographers talk about all the time is, shouldn't we be paid when our images are used in the press?
Right.
And the answer is sometimes.
Yeah. Depends, right?
It depends.
Well, so for me, I think, when it comes to publicity, there's tons, it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, I work with a lot of advocates, so for advocates, we really use those opportunities to grow their reach. For entrepreneurs, really use those opportunities to grow their reach, but in a different way. We want it to be more targeted. We want those people to come in. So, let's say if they have a nurture sequence or they want people driven to their email or to their social media, that's where we're going to really make a splash, and we're going to not just share. That's the thing that I see people doing on social media. You've got this whole other audience out here. When I talked about like that tail getting longer and longer and longer, well, social media is part of that. Yeah. You've got an audience there too. And so it's, what are you doing with it? Are you just throwing that article out there, or are you setting the stage for it? Are you warming up your audience basically for the message of the feature or the visual of the feature and sharing your experience so they become connected? You're drawing them in so they're perfectly prepared to read that article and feel very connected to you.
Yeah, sometimes I don't even publish the link.
Right.
I take the opposite approach. I'm like, you got to dig for it. If you find it, you shall be rewarded. But
right.
I'm not going to make it easy for you. Yeah, but it's funny. I don't think of. There's two kinds of publicity in my world. There's for me what I do, and then there's the images that I've given other people. It's for them. And so I'm doing two different things. Sometimes I write my own stories. I've been written about, but most of the time I'm photographing you so that you can be featured in something. And that's awesome, but it doesn't change my world, which is why I think I don't make anything of it. And I guess I've just gotten to a place where I believe in the energy of the work more than the grab of the publicity, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, like anyone who meets me is just going to feel it, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, oh, you're the real deal. Okay, I got it.
Right.
Like, I got that. But you're right. Like, where's my reach? I got no reach. I mean, I used to have a network. I used to have people and friends, and I still do. And but I can't compete with people who are regularly blogging and, you know, this article, that article.
Yeah. No, I'd love to see, I mean, with the media cred that you have, basically, you know, I mean, I would love to see what a strategy would look like to put that into place for you, because to grow and expand that reach, I mean, you have so many, I mean, literally your work has been everywhere that you can resurrect, that you could share, that not just provide, you know, incredible credibility, but are intriguing and interesting and allow people to see Tanya, see you for who you really are, you know?
I don't know if I don't know if anybody would see anything, but so one of the things I actually struggled with, no joke, was I remember asking this in one of those B School groups, can I actually put all this social media, whatever they call those things, the tags, what is it, social media proof? I feel like it's too much. It's actually overwhelming. I would be embarrassed to put all that on one page. And
why?
Because it feels, I don't know, superfluous. I mean, aren't you supposed to just pick the 5 best and keep it simple and all that stuff? That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Like it should just be the 5 best or whatever that is. Yeah. You know, less is more and more is more.
Right. Exactly. Depending on who
I don't
you
know
ask,
what
right?
it is.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I guess I don't think about it very much. I wish I could generate more press, but honestly, whenever I want to generate press, I can.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. But yeah, I mean, the last thing I did was write a story about my boyfriend training people in our basement. And
yes,
not only did the local paper publish it, but they published it in 3 papers.
Right.
And it was a half-page story. And he was thrilled. I mean, it was amazing for him.
And I love that you say that, because it really irritates me when people will scoff at local or regional opportunities, publicity opportunities, and local and regional publicity can be so powerful.
So big. I mean, it's where I got my start. My first big piece was half a page it was in the East Hampton Star. And Alec Baldwin called me as a result.
Nice. See, so people do pay attention.
People do pay attention. Yeah. He wanted to do a book about divorce, which at the time I was like, no, I just don't think people want to be photographed in that way. Like it didn't make sense to me at all. But yes, and I also am super aware that my particular like local regional area,
right.
This is just New York City, small.
Right.
But starving for content. So not starving, but no, we have like really good local papers, and we have something like 5 of them, which is
fantastic.
Super unusual. Plus all those magazines like the Hamptons magazine I used to shoot for, and the HC&G and like all that. There's a lot of it. Yeah,
no, I love local lifestyle magazines because they, like you said, they're always looking for content. And I can tell you, I had a client like 10 years ago. He was a CEO, executive of a big financial company, retired, wanted to start, or took an early retirement. You know, he wanted to start his own consulting firm. He wrote a book, you know, we did the whole deal. Wanted to do travel and speak and do everything. And the basis of me getting him booked for more than 6-figure speaking tour that year was a beautiful feature that the local lifestyle magazine did about he and his family.
Wow.
And we used that feature in every pitch. We used it in every single communication. We embedded the link into the email signature. You know, this was kind of like before that. This was like 10 years ago, you know? So, but what happened was, everybody that read it, everybody that saw it fell in love with him because he got a great story and he was doing good work. And so he kind of scoffed at it. He's a CEO of this huge company, this huge corporation. And I'm just like, just trust me, please, And so we got him this really great feature, and it changed the trajectory of what he was doing as an entrepreneur.
Was it local, like the town of Charlotte, or probably smaller than that even?
It was in Saratoga.
Oh, Saratoga, New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's the same. That Saratoga is the same as the Hamptons.
Mm-hmm.
Smaller even, but for horse people, I know what Saratoga is.
Right.
So actually, I wanted to ask, how did you end up? You're in not Tennessee.
No, I'm in Kentucky.
Kentucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're because of the horses, or other way around?
No, I'm here because of the horses. Okay. So I'm a world's grand champion equestrian, and I grew up riding my whole life. Yeah.
You're a grand champion equestrian? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I've been riding. I was born into horses, and I always knew that I wanted to be in Kentucky and to have my own horse farm. And that's what we do. We live on a horse farm, a horse breeding farm. Uh-huh. And so we raise and show American saddlebreds and Friesians.
Wow.
Yeah. So
a friend of mine lives up near Saratoga, and he breeds horses up there.
Nice.
He's really into finding little amazing horses that are lost, whose lineages are murky or unclear or whatever.
Yeah.
And he paints them, and he photographs them so beautifully. I should send him to you.
I would love that.
Greatest. Yeah. Oh my gosh. He was an amazing fashion photographer. He used to do all of the illustrations for Barney's, New York.
Oh my goodness.
And drawing.
Uh-huh.
And he can paint. And he used to do things out here in the Hamptons. And he was a photographer. And he dated a polo player from Argentina for many years.
Well, so, there you go.
The fashion and oh my God, you would love this guy.
I do. That's awesome. Yeah, I would love to be connected. One of my clients actually is an equine photographer, and she's incredible. Travels all over the world and photographs, horses everywhere. And then, the polo culture down here is, it's here, and we love it. I love it. And of course, it kind of shifts around depending on the time of the year down to Wellington and all that. But so, we live in Kentucky. I grew up on a farm, and we live on a farm, and I have 2 kids, and then I'm expecting I'm going to have a baby in 6.5 weeks. So
you saw, I commented on that. I do hope you're going to do an amazing maternity portrait.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Cause I was, where was I? I was in Colorado with Jennifer Thorson, who's an amazing fine art photographer. Mm-hmm. And we were working on horses, doing all
nice. Yes.
Basically bareback women draped over horses, things like that. I have a picture on my wall that I actually created at that workshop. And that's how I saw you. I saw you with flowing things and horses, or you could be standing if you don't want to be on a horse, but it must be done.
Yes, I know. And so the lady that I mentioned, that's my client, that's the equine photographer, she's gonna come up, and we're gonna do it. It's just the world has just been, in chaos and crazy and everything. And so, so it's, we've just had really limited access. Obviously we're here, and there's horses on this farm and that sort of thing. But then my daughter rides and competes, and so her horses are about 20 minutes away. But
wow.
Yeah. It's it's a lot of work to live on a horse farm, and it's a lot of work to nurture and care for these animals. We have chickens, we have a garden, we have all the whole thing. But I always say it's the best work if you can get it, cleaning the stalls and grooming the horses and all that kind of stuff. And for me, my toes in the dirt in the garden, all that kind of stuff is it's very healing for me.
Well, I have a dear friend who lives a mile from here, and she lives on a farm, and she has all those animals. Her horses are not fancy horses. They're 2 simple horses. and pigs and chickens, but she started a school. She started she's Swedish, and it's a green
Nice.
school. And she uses the animals to teach the children how to be kind and how to treat the earth kindly. And it's so magical and beautiful.
It sounds
she's
like
someone
it.
that teaches
Yeah.
equine therapy using her horses as well.
Right.
Which I did once, and I was just blown away by what happened.
It is super powerful. And, you know, it's a common saying that like a horse is a mirror to your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it is 100% the truth. And so that's a big part of the reason why they have so many programs for at-risk youth to work with horses, because you have to kind of abandon that aggression in order to get the results that you want.
Interesting. Yeah, because the horse can just take you out. So
right. I mean, they're a fight or flight animal that weighs, you know, roughly a ton. So they really just let you do what you want with them. But it really, at the end of the day, it's kind of their decision, you know?
Wow. And so you've always lived on a farm, basically.
I have, yeah. So I grew up, I mean, my parents both were, you know, have their own professions. So it was just a gentleman's farm there. It wasn't a working farm, but we had horses and sheep and pigs and, you know, the whole deal. And so I just always knew that when I had kids, I wanted them to grow up, you know, very similarly. So
that's so beautiful.
Yeah. It's a nice place to be. It's a nice home base. So
yeah. What's your nearest airport?
Louisville is an international, and then we have Cincinnati is really close too. So.
Oh, okay. That's always my number one concern about anywhere I live. It's like, what's the nearest airport? Because I really, really like to travel.
Yeah, me too. And so this has been, I don't know about you, but for, you know, everything's going on in the world to not be able to travel.
Haven't been anywhere, haven't planned anything. I'm actually planning a shooting trip to California at the end of July.
Nice.
And hoping it can go through, because I mean, normally when I shoot for someone, they get so much material that they can last 6 months, a year, sometimes a couple of years. Depends on how much they use new material. But it's been about a year since I've seen these two clients. And so it's time for new stuff. I'm going to go. I'm going to meet some new people and just keep my fingers crossed that it's not like chaos in
right.
Yeah.
You know, that's always my hope and my prayer, that things start to get better. I don't know, when I read some of the things right now, I don't know that that's happening right at this moment, but
yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
So when's your actual due date?
I have a scheduled C-section on August 15th.
Oh.
So we're like 50. I don't even know.
The day before Madonna.
Do what?
The day before Madonna.
There we go. So a Leo baby. I went to the doctor yesterday and she's like, yeah, it's like 54 days or something like that. And I was like, oh, wow. That sounds close. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're already managing everything.
Yeah. And I have a lot of help, you know, and that's one thing that I'm not ashamed of. I'm really thankful for the arriving at the place in my life where I am capable of, and I know myself well enough to know, and I love myself enough to know that I need that. I need the help and I need the support, because my business keeps my schedule full, but not in a way that I want it to run my life. So I have a lot of help and a lot of good support, not just in my business, but in my home and with my children and my farm and all that. So
it takes a village. Sometimes your own village.
Right. And finding the right village is extremely important.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I have a friend who calls her community, she calls it her village people, which
that's nice. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Are most of your clients women?
Yeah, I do have some male clients, but the majority of my clients are women. I made a shift a couple years ago and I decided I was just going to work with female entrepreneurs. and that lasted for a little while, and I was really happy with it. And then men started reaching out to me, and I thought about it at the end of the day, like, these are people who are really incredible. They have really incredible causes and want to do and are doing amazing things. So there was really no reason why I wouldn't want to work with them.
Yeah.
So I've kind of gone through a couple different phases. When I was working in the agency setting, like, all of my clients were men, and not because I pursued that or anything. It just happened that way. I worked with a lot of authors and a lot of professional athletes, and they just kind of migrated to me. And I was totally fine with that. And then I made the transition. I was just going to focus on women entrepreneurs and advocates. And so now I've kind of come full circle, and I'm working with both men and women.
Beautiful. All right, last question, which is a totally random question, but do you know Indrani Goradia?
I don't.
Or have you heard of Indrani's Light?
I feel like maybe I've heard that.
I feel like I need to connect you to, because all of her work is about ending violence against women.
Oh yeah, I love that.
She has her own foundation. She speaks to other people. I just feel like the two of you together could do some stuff.
Yeah. No, I would appreciate that. I would love to know more about that.
Yeah, that's my thing, is just connecting. I just like connecting people. That's why I started this show, so here you are, and now people get to watch you be you, and
right.
I have no idea who it's for, and that's okay too. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, connections. I think you're either naturally inclined to be that way or you're not, Yes. And I'm the same. I love to connect people. It's a big part of the work that I do.
Yeah. I can tell.
Yeah.
I can tell. Well, on that note, I've taken so much of your time, and I'm super happy that you were here. And
oh my goodness, yes, this was wonderful.
Yeah, and I want
thank you so much.
See that maternity photo. I want it to be really awesome.
I know, on that horseback with the flowing, yeah.
It could just be your flowing hair. I mean,
True, I know, and my hair has gotten so long since I've been taking, my prenatal vitamins. So.
Oh, I love it. Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you. And
always wonderful to talk with you.
You too. And I'll post this, and I'll put some links on it and make it look a little fancy, and that'll be it.
Perfect. Let me know. I will share it all over the place. I appreciate you.
Awesome. Me too, you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.